Welcome guys, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things in Bleach, duels. Who is Bleach's best sword duelist? This criteria for this video is quite simple. I'm going to see what each Bleach character has done in the series in regards to what they've done with their blades. A lot of characters who are worthy will be left off. This includes the negligible swordsman, all the swordsmen who have shown little to nothing in this department, or are confirmed to be experts in a different discipline other than swordplay, not allowing for really any inference to be made. What I mean by this is characters who specialize in Kido are probably not going to be on this list. This section kind of includes characters like Momo, Senjumaru, Sane, Nemu, Hanatsuro, Jirobo, Jidambo, Tatsufusa, Kiryu, and more. If I didn't mention a character later, just assume they are in this tier. If I do mention them in sword regards, it means I think very highly of them. They just did not make the list. All right, let's get right to it. Number 10. Ukiura Cipher and Neliel 2. I have to split this spot because I was equally impressed with their displays of swordsmanship, despite Nell having just a single showing against an almost equally impressive Noitara. These two pushed off other impressive fighters like Byakuya, Toshiro, and Ikaku. Let's talk about fighters. First, I have to say that there is an inaccurate assumption about Ukiura. It is stated he is using a katana. Ukiura is most likely using a saber. Most likely a Swiss-styled saber. It's straighter than a standard katana, and even though it has the hilt wrappings seen on a katana, the guard has quillons, and not your usual Suba. The other indicator is Ukiura's mostly unique style in Bleach. Ukiura primarily thrusts with his sword, which is not how you generally use a katana. He pokes and prods almost as if he's wielding an estoc or a rapier. And when he's going for max damage, he will lunge in and or take the back and slash. Ukiura pretty much dominated Ichigo in swordplay in their bouts, and it wasn't really close. Ichigo pulled out every trick he had at that point in his skill tree, and it didn't even falter Ukiura. Now, Ichigo got better, but just based on that performance alone, Ukiura was clearly one of the best swordsmen in the Arrancar saga, and generally all of Bleach by that point. Not to mention, Ukiura has shown proficiency in using lances and spears as well. It might be criminal to put her this high off of one performance, but it was impressive. For the longest time, Nell defended her spot from Noitara with just her sword, and later when she regained her adult body, she put Noitara through a blender. Noitara is no slouch. This man was fighting pretty well against Zaraki, and when he started wielding 6 weapons with enough precision, he overwhelmed Kenpachi. It made it all the more terrifying. But Nell, fresh off returning and still weak, continued to dance around him and managed to land a hit easier than his other opponents. Not to mention, Nell does the truly knightly thing of throwing hits in combination with her swordplay. Mind you, this is well after Noitara had plenty of time to get better, while Nell was actually forced to regress. Nell can't go any higher because there is a moment in her exchange with Noitara where it was pretty much a draw, but that's to be expected when she just got her body back and she only had the one performance. Number 9, Kisuke Urahara. Kisuke Urahara has a lot going for him that some people may forget. Kisuke first and foremost showed a scary, acrobatic, and adaptive style when fighting, but he's also very disciplined and straightforward as well. If I can compare Kisuke to another fighter you've probably seen, it'd be Mugen from Samurai Champloo. Not to mention, Kisuke has clout in the sword community, with Ikaku getting shivers when he heard Kisuke was Ichigo's swordmaster and was convinced that Ichigo's large growth in such a short time period was due to Kisuke's training. This emphasizes Kisuke's skill and knowledge. We know Kisuke to be an all-around great fighter, but that didn't stop him from being respected by even the 11th Division, which prides itself on melee combat. Number 8, Kenpachi Zaraki. This is probably without a doubt the most controversial placement on this list, and I'm still not completely sure about it myself. Kenpachi Zaraki has a dozen statements praising not just his power, but his fighting capabilities as well. It's the reason he's a war potential. He's called an unparalleled swordsman by data books and novels. Unohana taught him proper swordsmanship right before her death, but that's the problem as well. He's essentially a statement merchant. He doesn't show the finesse we see from other swordsmen in the series. This is mainly due to him always underestimating his opponents or just holding back for funsies. But I can't actually see where the skill is. We were just told he's the best and he has natural skill, and we do see it. He swings his sword around like a chopper, and we've never seen him disarm an opponent or finesse someone. And by disarm, I mean their weapon. He's disarmed tons of people. The one finesse move we saw was the extended version of the fight with Unohana in the anime. And again, that's the last time we actually see him use his sword or any skill meaningfully. Number 7, Coyote Starrk. Coyote Starrk is without a doubt the best swordsman in the Espada and one of the best in the series. Not only is his knowledge and battle IQ in exchanges top notch, but he is one of 5 fighters on this list who is ambidextrous. Not only is he ambidextrous, but he showed he could hang with a fighter higher than himself on this list. He initially did this with one sword, but when Shunsui ramped it up and Starrk was suffering from a grievous chest wound, he fell back on dual wielding to compensate for this. This means Starrk may actually be better than his placement shows. But Shunsui did show Starrk the difference between natural talent and honed martial arts. Number 6, Ichigo Kurosaki. Ichigo Kurosaki gets so much flack from the fan base and the wider anime community, but if you just stop and watch his fights and just pay attention, you'll see a fundamentally sound genius. Ichigo has defeated or held his own against some of Bleach's best fighters with just his sword. I have an entire video dedicated to this, so if you want a more in-depth analysis, check that video out. Just know, Ichigo is also a dual wielder and flattened Ginjo and Ikkaku with finesse moves. Oh, and match Byakuya with only like a month a total of sword experience. Number 5, Gin Ichimaru. Gin Ichimaru is one of those Bleach characters that suffers from being loved. He has so many good factors that his blade abilities get overshadowed. Not only do his tactics and IQ make him a scary opponent, but his skill is sneaky. Gin carries a wakizashi, which against opponents like Ichigo means they may have 2 to 3 times the reach advantage on him. And when you see Gin fight people like Toshiro, Ichigo, or Shinji, he is always at a disadvantage with their longer blades. Gin pressing Ichigo, seemingly going even with Shinji, and pressing Toshiro says more about his skill than theirs. Gin graduated the Soul Reaper Academy in a year and defeated a 3rd seat easily with just his wakizashi. That means even as a child, Gin's ability to cut people down who have better advantages than him is comparable to what we saw as Zaraki as a child. What's even more scary is Gin has no problem using any tactic like blinding opponents to close distance. Number 4, Shunsui Kyoraku. Do I need to explain this? Dual wielder, nearly perfectly ambidextrous, dirty tactics, trained personally by Yamamoto, and comes from a long line of martial artists. Shunsui has tons of combat experience. He puts this experience to use and always enters a battle expecting his opponents to be just as dirty as him, which generally never lets him be caught off guard. He pushed a prodigy like Starrk to the limit and bested him. He cut Starrk down with one of the coldest moves in the series. Although there were game shenanigans at play, that fight was decided solely by sword skill. He's also willing to grapple and throw hands with opponents mixed in with his swordplay, which makes him one of the most well-rounded characters in the series. Shunsui so far, in my opinion, has the 2nd most impressive showcasing of sword ability in the entire series, only behind my number 1 pick. Number 3, Yhwach. Yhwach snags this spot for what can only be considered supreme talent mixed with lived experience. By that I mean Yhwach is one of the oldest characters in the series. This age, mixed with his ability to absorb the experience of dead Quincy's, means he probably has thousands of souls worth of skill to draw on. This natural talent manifests as his main weapon. Most Quincy rely on bows. Yhwach's first instinct is the sword. The sad part is that his sword does have a name, we just never got to hear it. Yhwach, when trying against Ichigo, was able to press Ichigo and even finesse him into landing a hit on his arm. Now, Yhwach wasn't trying to hurt Ichigo, but expose his arm so he could see the blue vein. Being able to force Ichigo on the defensive and landing a glancing shot on purpose means it probably could have been worse if he intended to. Royd, through copying Yhwach's experience, shows great skill and competency against even Yamamoto when he was swinging his sword around. Then he clashes pretty well against Ichibei, with Ichibei having the superior reach weapon. Then finally, in his final duel with Ichigo, he decides to play with Ichigo and starts dual wielding for fun to match him. Yuobao has tons of experience and knowledge, and it makes him a formidable force with a blade. Number 2, Genryusai Shigekuni Yamamoto. This monster is the undisputed number 2. Yamamoto has almost everything you look for in a sword master, from experience, power, innovation, versatility. Yamamoto has multiple styles he can fall back on when Zanjutsu isn't an option, and his Zanjutsu may usually be enough. As the databook states, he even surpasses Yachiru Unohana, Shunsui Gin, and others in that regard. He has his own sword style that he taught at his own dojo well before the invention of the Soul Reaper Academy, giving his skill more validation as he is both a great swordsman and a great teacher of the art. He used Aedo to erase Ion from existence. He used his Zanjutsu to fend off both Shunsui and Ukitake, and even surpass my number 1 undisputed pick in those same arts. Yamaji is Yamaji for a reason. With that said, however, number 1, Unohana. Let's get straight to the cut. This placement is essentially indisputable. Even if you think head-to-head Yamamoto would defeat Unohana in a sword fight, that is simply one thing to factor into the rankings. Retsu Yachiru Unohana may not be better than Yama in Zanjutsu, but that essentially doesn't matter when she has about 7,999 other styles she can fall back on. I covered her skills fairly well, I think, in the Bleach Has No Swordsman video, so check that out for, again, a more in-depth analysis on her skill. But her sickeningly beautiful display of footwork, deft handwork, and sheer knowledge and experience makes her the indisputable champ in the regards of swordsmen in the Bleachverse. I personally don't believe any of them could beat her on her worst day. She has not only mastered styles of blade work, but different blades from knives, swords, and even more obscure weapons. Her placement is untouchable. In one battle, she brought Kenny from a natural to a swordsman who began cementing his fundamentals. She is a teacher, a master, and a killer with the sword. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please let me know what your rankings are, what you agree with, what you didn't agree with in the comment section. All right? Tell me your list, and have a great day. Bye.